Let's talk about our last section in this, and that is how we heat homes in general around the world. It's time for the world, due to a big ecological footprint, to consider alternative energy sources. We rely heavily on fossil fuels, and there's several problems associated with fossil fuels which are non-renewable. Fossil fuels have what we call a life expectancy. They're going to eventually run out. Lots of people believe 50 years left with oil, and they're also very pollutant. Burning fossil fuels increases atmospheric pollution. Vehicle exhaust can contribute to acid rain. And as you know, carbon in the atmosphere promotes the greenhouse effect and global warming. This is a coal power plant. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. And look at the heat signature of this. So what are some alternatives, or what's some other hopes? Nuclear power is usually considered too risky, but the sun, water, wind, waves, tides, and even heat from below the surface of the earth would be considered renewable, which means we'd have unlimited supply. So let's look at water power. Hydroelectric power plants can be done in many ways. One is a river. We can dam up a river, and then the flowing water comes up. We dam up the river to create a lake or a reservoir. The water flows down, it spins a turbine. The turbine then generates electricity, and then we let out the water at the other end. So here's how it looks. We dam up a river, water comes in, spins a turbine, which then generates electricity, and that's how it works. There are a few problems with dams. One is you significantly change the ecosystem due to damming up the river, and so there's lots of negative things associated with that. We alter the fish. Lots of times the fish coming in can get caught in here, and so there are some downfalls to hydroelectric power due to the building of the dam. How about wind power? Wind power would work in some areas, but not all. In other words, not all areas around the world have lots of wind, and so the calmer areas wouldn't be able to rely on this form of energy. Also, birds can get trapped in the turbines that spin, and they could die. Also, look at the amount of landscape that the wind towers take up. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. These are tidal power units, so the rising and falling of tides can cause these turbines to spin, which help generate electricity. So wave flux comes up, helps turn this turbine, and the turbine generates electricity. There are several advantages to using some of these natural sources of energy. One is they're inexhaustible. That means they'll always be available, which is why we call them renewable. They're clean, and they do not damage the atmosphere as much or damage the earth as much. And there are several types. One or more could be used in a country, either small scale or large scale. So why are we using fossil fuels right now? They are cheaper. However, they're in limited supply, and they're very dirty to the environment. Another idea of an alternative energy source might be geothermal energy, so heat from geysers coming to the surface, or hot springs or volcanoes. Again, just like wind though, this is limited. Only certain areas would be able to harness this type of energy. Here's some examples. So use heat to make steam to turn turbines. Here's a geyser in California doing that. In the US, it's pretty potential. Here, Japan, Iceland, and New Zealand. If we look at the Earth in the cross section, although hot areas near the surface are limited, the Earth is hot everywhere if you go far enough down. So you could drill deeper down to try and find hot spots. So here's an example of some different hydrothermal systems and how deep you'd have to go. Again, this is a bit of a downfall in that you don't want to drill too deep. We talked about hydroelectric dams already. Lots of places around the world are using hydroelectricity. Problems with hydroelectricity location. Unused rivers are in extreme north populations, competition with recreation uses, and environmental concerns. It's hard to build a dam in populated river valleys, and yeah. So here's tidal power again. The rising and falling of tides could spin turbines. New Brunswick uses that. They have huge differences in tidal ranges. So this is good because there's no dam, just a turbine under. Problems, it can corrode. It's hard to navigate under the water with all these turbines. And it doesn't really produce a lot of energy compared to other alternatives. Wind farms we've talked about before. Again, look at how much it litters the landscape, these wind farms. Best wind locations are only in certain areas. California. The Netherlands uses the coast to make use of sea breezes. England, offshore sea breezes and land breezes. So again, location, it can't be near populated areas. Bird migration. Wind power is visually not very pleasing, and it's intermittent and must be coupled with other energy sources. Here's a big solar farm. All these are solar panels. Kind of like wind though, look at the amount of space it takes up. More stuff on solar. So you need big plants. Energy efficient house using both wind and solar could be a viable option. And we talked about active solar heating versus passive solar heating. Problem, solar houses, if it's smoggy, in other words, there are lots of cloud cover, like in Los Angeles, it won't work. It's very expensive, and it would be hard for bigger places like Walmart and big hotels. And so that's a look at different alternative energy sources besides relying on fossil fuels.